Time now to take a look at what's trending online with James Creed, who joins me for this evening's Media Watch. Good evening. You've been looking for us then some of this reaction and opinions online regarding the election of Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil.
That's right. Just to look at some of the tweets or images doing the rounds of social media, but also opinion pieces and whatnot. It's almost Halloween. People were celebrating it already last weekend. So some feeling that images of ghoulish kind of images seemed appropriate for not just Bolsonaro, but hashtag Trump, hashtag Pittsburgh, hashtag Brexit, hashtag Merkel, hashtag Khashoggi. A sort of a dark, grisly picture there with a kind of an image of the globe superimposed on a skull, a sugar skull, whatever you want to call it. It's all very dark. This is a cartoon picked up by Courrier International here in France from a Greek cartoonist, and you can see here images from gosh, I don't know, it's a sort of a dark take on the Garden of Eden or something. The fall of man, maybe, I'm not sure exactly, but you have snakes kind of around various tree trunks there with names such as Trump, AFD, Salvini, Orban, Le Pen. So really, a lot of people are placing Bolsonaro in the broader context. Instead of snakes, here you have worms. And I think the underlying point that is being made here is that these are symptoms of a broader malaise. And indeed, they're words that were uttered by, I'll get to them in a second, but Brian Klaas first. A neo-fascist takes power in Brazil. One of the strongest defenders of the rules-based international order signals the beginning of the end in Germany. And the President of the United States continues to attack democratic institutions at home while cheerleading for despots abroad. He's an Oxford political scientist and a commentator on this. This is Ian Bremner of New York University, also a political scientist, and who writes for Time magazine as well. He says, is Trump making it worse? Yes. Sorry, that's. I'm getting ahead of myself here. He's saying for everyone that wants to blame Trump for the staggering political hatred in the US, it's worth asking why the same thing is happening across Europe and many other developing economies. Trump is a symptom, not a cause. He goes on to say that the problems you need to address are the root causes: economic inequality, the failed social safety nets, immigration without integration, media and tech complex. In other words, this is something that affects Brazil, but not just Brazil. These are trends that we're seeing across the globe in different ways.
Yeah, and that big picture then has been looked at in France's liberation as well, hasn't it?
That's right. Laurent Geoffrin writing this editorial. Now, it's a couple of days old. It was before the result came through, but I suppose anticipating what the result would be. You'll note here as well that they have a graphic of what they call democracies that are affected by very much right-wing nationalism. You can see in Europe various countries that have had elections recently in that direction. And here in the Americas, you have the US and Brazil. What he's saying also is populist nationalist leaders are a phenomenon driven by mistrust of the elites and also by xenophobia. But he did sound a kind of a reassuring note saying this is not the 1930s. There have never been so many democracies across the planet as there are today, and many of them are very solid. But there is this insidious, pernicious kind of what he calls evil coming from within, which is hollowing out our democratic culture. It's nationalist populism. It's not an open dictatorship, but it's a creeping trend that is eroding liberties, drowning out genuine public debate, eroding the state of law, and designating foreigners and others as the scapegoat. Instead of liberty, equality, and fraternity, you could opt for another slogan for identity, security, and intolerance as the kind of the keywords there. Similar ideas coming out in the Spanish press here, El País, that particular piece saying that the anger that is engulfing these countries has 1,000 different justifications: endemic corruption, wealth distribution, poverty. But the phoenix that is rising from the ashes of this fire is Bolsonaro, Trump, and others. A lot of comparisons being drawn as well in terms of tactics with Trump's election. You can see here, this is one of Bolsonaro's sons appearing alongside Steve Bannon, who of course was one of the communications strategy architects of Donald Trump's campaign. The use of WhatsApp for targeted messages, also accusing the media of fake news, just creating this playing field of utter division and kind of opposing.
We've also seen
echo
him,
chambers.
Of course, working with leaders here in Europe as well, like Marine Le Pen as well. So again, that kind of global picture. Meanwhile, then you've been taking a look for us then on social media in Brazil itself, where it's very clear that the country is deeply divided.
Well, it's deeply divided as well because I suppose there's such a sort of a polarization of the debate and an using then of fake news as well. So people are basically dealing with completely different realities. You can see here the way the left is designated in Brazil, and it has been throughout this election, as sort of commie lefties that are, we're not talking about kind of social democracy here, they're cast as commies, and you can see the Grim Reaper here in red with Bolsonaro shooting it down, and this is somebody who's in favour of Bolsonaro. An equal degree of sort of violence in the images showing what this Bolsonaro vote involves, which is sort of a suicidal gesture from the point of view of those who are very much against Bolsonaro. Others, you know, showing the Nazi flags. I'll just finish with this particular element here. Resistance. This is not my president. That was a hashtag used a lot today, with arms representing a woman, I suppose black and gay. So the minorities that have been targeted in the campaign by Bolsonaro, and his rhetoric in the past as well, indeed.
All right, thank you very much indeed. James Creedon there with Media Watch for us on the programme.